WHGE 95.3 FM, the education advocacy station. Coming up, the Open Eye. All right. Let's get them started. Excuse me there.
Those of us that indulge in or commit intellectual violence don't do so for the pleasure of mental masturbation or ego diddling. We do so because the chains of oppression on our people's minds are deep and difficult to remove.
Good morning, my children of the sun. Welcome to the Open Eye on WHGE 95.3 FM. I'm your host and third eye optometrist, Patrice Gibbs, here to get them started, ready to get your, all right, ready to get your eye open, all right. And as we always do, let's start off here. Every generation has its purpose. Ours is to reveal the truth and reverse the brainwashing. And that's what we do here. We reverse the brainwashing. Because some of our people think, you can just go through life and do the things that you see your mayonnaise members do. Let me give you some free legal advice. Do not ever give a statement to police. They will say you can go home after. You can't. They will say they just want to help you. They don't. They will say, you are not a suspect. Yes, you are. Especially one of us. Stop talking. Say nothing. Lawyer up. They are not your friend. That's right. All right. Let's get our, let me get my, wait a minute. Get my disclaimer out the way here. There we go. Yeah. Okay, give me a little grief here. Give me a second, y'all. There. All right.
The views and opinions expressed on Open Eye are those of the hosts, guests, and contributors, and do not reflect the policy or position of WHGE 95.3 FM, nor our sponsor, the Delaware Center for Homeless Vets. Any content provided by Open Eye's hosts, guests, or contributors are theirs and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, company, or individual.
WHGE 95.3 FM. This is the Open Eye. Oh yeah. Like I said, reverse the brainwashing. I don't walk away to teach people a lesson. I walk away when I've learned mine. You feel me? I hope that you do. You don't have to approve of other people's choices. You don't have to like their hair color, their tattoos, or their piercings. You don't need to agree with their style of dress or how tight their leggings are. You're not required to agree with their non-traditional lifestyle or their relationship decisions. And you don't need to like their religion, faith, or spiritual beliefs. What you do need to do is respect that other people don't have to live by your rules. Because they're no more important or relevant than anyone else's. Acting like a decent human being and letting people live their lives should be an easy decision for everyone. It's not. Today is January 18th. January 18th. Important day for a few reasons here. Probably one of the most important reasons to me is this is Uncle Richard's birthday. Anybody that knows me knows that I did a column in the paper, Visit with Uncle Richard, on another station. I did Uncle Richard. Uncle Richard, he was the stand-in grandfather. Richard Mann and Janet Cooper, my grandmother's younger sister, married in 1948 in upstate New York. So by the time I came along in 1961, Uncle Richard was very much a part of the family. Neither of my grandfathers lived close by. My mother's father lived in New York, and my father's father lived in Maryland and died before many of his 30-plus grandchildren got to know him. So for all intents and purposes, Uncle Richard was my grandfather. Uncle Richard taught me how to cuss, fish, and spit. Uncle Richard taught me how to play poker. I helped Uncle Richard fix the sink, work on his car, and paint the backyard fence. Uncle Richard took me to the ball game, fishing, and the barbershop. Uncle Richard taught me how to cook on the grill. When I was writing for the Woman's Spectator, I created a regular feature called A Visit with Uncle Richard, like I mentioned earlier. The stories and adventures of Uncle Richard became legendary in Wilmington, Delaware. Though Uncle Richard left us some years ago, his favorite and only nephew, Bubby, that's what Uncle Richard called me, has kept his memory alive long after his passing. Uncle Richard was so popular, his adventures were eventually compiled in the best-selling book, A Visit with Uncle Richard, and that's still available on Amazon. Yes, indeed. Uncle Richard. That was my man. WHGE 95.3 FM. The Open Eye. Oh. WHGE 95.3 FM. Third Eye Optometrist here, Patrice Gibbs. I don't know if many of you saw the video of the 11-year-old black girl in handcuffs. Okay, it was disgusting. A sheriff's office in Syracuse, New York released details explaining what led up to the detainment and handcuffing of an 11-year-old black girl deputies mistook for a car thief. 11 years old. The Onondaga County Sheriff's Office posted a news release explaining that deputies had conducted a traffic stop on a gray Kia on Monday, January 13th that had been reported stolen on January 12th. Viral videos on Facebook show an 11-year-old girl being detained by deputies who mistook her for a car thief suspect. All four occupants fled the vehicle on foot. After a brief foot pursuit, deputies caught up with a 14-year-old driver who was taken into custody. Other deputies scoured the nearby streets for the other suspects and spotted the 11-year-old girl wearing a near identical outfit to one of the car theft suspects who was captured on dash cam. The clip showed deputies handcuffing the child as she's surrounded by her friends, who adamantly insist that their friend is innocent. Once deputies at the scene receive a photo of the suspect for review, one deputy shows the girl the photo and says, "Girl, you telling me this ain't you?" She's talking to an 11-year-old child. One clip shows the child crying and visibly distressed from the encounter when she faced the potential of being taken into custody. Once deputies further reviewed the photo and determined the child wasn't the suspect, they released her. In the news release, the sheriff's office explained that once officials reviewed the incident, they determined the detainment was lawful and reasonable due to the child's clothing description and her proximity to the traffic stop involving the stolen car. Upon detainment, deputies diligently tried to quickly compare the juvenile with video evidence obtained via dash cam. In that comparison, it was clear that the detained juvenile was not the suspect we were seeking, and she was immediately released. This situation was cleared up quickly, largely due to the juvenile's disposition, patience, and cooperation. The juvenile was handcuffed for less than 7 minutes. 7 seconds was too goddamn long. The release also stated that after the detainment, the sheriff personally met with the girl's mother to discuss her concerns about why a parent wasn't contacted after her child was detained. The conversation convinced the office to adopt a new policy that dictates that OXO deputies must contact the parent or guardian of any juvenile detained for criminal investigation purposes, no matter how brief the encounter is. It's a good policy to have, says OXO spokesperson Thomas Dutton. And moving forward, we're implementing that policy because even the sheriff said, if that was my kid getting handcuffed, I'd want to know about it. I would want someone to tell me. OXO policy previously mandated that parents or guardians of minors must be notified once arrest is made. Newton pointed out how the encounter with the 11-year-old played out. It's terrible for this poor kid, he said. I mean, no one wants that. The sheriff's office also explained why they handcuffed the child, citing that handcuffing detainees is standard practice to prevent suspect individuals from fleeing, fighting, using weapons if they're armed, or destroying contraband on their person. Handcuffing from the start usually prevents a controlled situation from devolving into an uncontrolled situation, ultimately preventing altercations, force, and potential for injury, the release stated. The police do not definitely know a person's age, and ascertaining that information is part of the detainment process. Handcuffing juveniles in this circumstance is lawful with policy and common practice in law enforcement. Authorities still have not located one of the individuals involved in the car theft. Deputies apprehended 2 boys, 13 and 17, who reportedly fled the traffic stop. They were charged. The fourth occupant, who is believed to be a teenage girl, still has not been located. Let me tell you something. If you saw that video and you weren't upset, there's something wrong with you. The attitude of the police was abysmal. One of these deputies said, "Oh, so you're just going to stand here and lie to me and tell me you didn't do it?" Pronounced her guilty on the scene. The female cop or deputy or whatever the hell she was, that, it'll go much easier if you just fess up. See, that's the game they play. If you fess up, if you just fess up, we'll call your parents and then you can go home. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. They will say you can go home afterwards. You can't. And you tell a child that and they just want to go home, they'll go here and fess up to whatever you say, because mom will fix it. It's not how it works. You'll try to trick or force a child, a little girl, who has done nothing. I don't even, I seriously doubt that she fit the description, other than the fact that she was black. Seriously doubt that. The behavior from those police had no compassion, no empathy for a child. They know they scared the hell out of the girl. She's crying. This could all be over if you just fess up. Are you going to tell me this ain't you? And even after it was determined that this was not the suspect, their attitude was not one of apology. Their attitude was, well, okay, we made a mistake, but you do look like her. So your mistake was having on clothes that matched and looking like her, being black. Yeah. Brother Lawrence, I see you there. All right. Free legal advice. They will say you can't go home. They will say you can go home afterwards. You can't. This is the same trick they use all over. This is the same trick they use on the Central Park 5. The exonerated 5. Told those kids, those teenagers, yeah, just fess up to this. We're going to help you out. You can go home afterwards. Don't get it mixed. Police see you as guilty until proven innocent if you're black. WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye. Patrice Gibbs, your third eye optometrist, right here on The Open Eye. It's a quote from Ken Burns, historian, documentarian. He said, being an American means reckoning with a history fraught with violence and injustice. Ignoring that reality in favor of mythology is not only wrong, but also dangerous. The dark chapters of American history have just as much to teach us, if not more, than the glorious ones, and often the two are intertwined. As some question how to teach American history to our children, and even question the history itself, I urge us to confront the hard truth and to trust our children with it. Because a truly great nation is one that acknowledges its failures. Being an American, reckoning with our violent history. Because if our children black children, no matter what age, are old enough to deal with the racism that's meted out to our community, then your white children are old enough to learn about the injustices that their own people committed on our people. I don't care how uncomfortable it makes you. If the history makes you uncomfortable, good. That means you're learning something. Because when you don't learn anything, it's how you get cracked like, what's this fool's name? Elijah Schaefer. He's a right-wing podcaster making news for his outrageous assertion that while black people may be citizens, they are not Americans. Now, Elijah Schaefer's point is unclear, though on brand. Yeah. Just the other day, the blonde, blue-eyed, race-baiting bastard declared that any woman who has an abortion should be put to death. Amendments were made and there were adjustments that gave you citizenship and the right to vote. And his podcast is called Slightly Offensive. Okay? But it didn't make you an American. It just gave you American citizenship. It gave you legal right. Yeah. It's unclear who Schaefer believes should qualify as an American, though it likely has something to do with a lighter skin tone. You know what I mean? In comments made a few years ago, he was still employed on Glenn Beck's The Blaze. Schaefer told Native Americans to get the F out of America. It doesn't take a genius to notice that black people and white people in America look, act, and behave fundamentally different, individually and collectively. That's not to say that black people aren't valuable in the eyes of God. That's not to say white people are better than black people, even if they are. Yeah, he was just kidding. Earlier in his rant, Schaefer mentioned how enslaved black people were counted as 3/5 of a person, referring to the 3/5 compromise reached during the 1787 United States Constitutional Convention, as the founders grappled with how state population should be counted. After being corrected by his co-host, in my world, it's 3/5, but I live in utopia. Yeah. And you know who his buddy is? Candace Owens, notorious Negro big wench. And this creep, he first gained attention January 6, 2021, when allegedly working as a journalist. He was part of the crowd who stormed the Capitol. He was an insurrectionist. He was seen on camera apparently skimming through House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's emails. Expect to hear plenty more bow from the Trump-empowered white supremacist crowd. And so it begins. You know, in some instances, I'm going to agree with him. Sitting at the table with nothing on your plate does not make you a diner. Living in America with Citizenships and Voting Rights Act does not make you an American if you cannot take advantage of all that comes with American citizenship. You know, it made me think. A whole lot of y'all think you're American. You're not. You're victims of America. WHGE 95.3 FM. This is The Open Eye. Your host, Patrice Gibbs, third eye optometrist. Here is this Project 2025. It's coming to the fore. Trump's cronies' plan for America. As this was coming up and people were going through it and getting an understanding of what it was about. They had some questions. Congressman Greg Casar confronted Project 2025 advisory board member about his pro-slavery comments. He confronted Mark Krikorian, an advisory board member and the executive director of the Center for Immigration Studies, who previously wrote, Haiti so screwed up because it wasn't colonized long enough. Yeah, that's what he said. Regarding Krikorian's previous quote, Kazar asked him if Haitians would have been better if they stayed colonized. Krikorian then said it would have been better in the long run if Haitians had been enslaved and colonized for 30 more years. Brother Mishba, before the day, I couldn't understand why Trump's Project 2025 could advocate for ending civil rights protections, but now I understand, said Congressman Greg Casar, Democrat from Texas. We have Project 2025 board members here who are the director of the group that the Southern Poverty Law Center has designated as a hate group. We have people on board that developed this, who have said, for example, that Haitians would have been better off with more influence from their enslavers. Yeah, that's exactly what he said. That they had been, and you know, it's something, hey, you know, Haiti is accused of practicing voodoo, and that's why they have so many disasters, and that's why they suffer poverty. Because Haiti has never been forgiven for their revolution that freed them for a minute from France. It was a French colony. Yeah, I tell you something. It's something for this fool to sit there and say some stuff like that, because there's no country that has been a bigger beneficiary of the Haitian Revolution than the United States. Because you know what happened to Louisiana? Okay, Napoleon sent 25,000 troops to New Orleans before they got to Haiti. Napoleon sent some troops to Haiti and left some in New Orleans. The plan was to conquer the Africans in Haiti and then conquer North America and make the Yankees an enslaved French colony. It didn't work out because the Africans in Haiti kicked the French's ass. And Napoleon lost so badly, he had to sell the Louisiana territory to the Americans, which doubled the size of the country. Haiti literally protected the United States from French invasion. Did you know the U.S. Marines invaded Haiti? Did you know that? In 1915, and went straight to the Haitian National Bank and removed all its gold reserves to Citibank in New York City. Do you know the term Banana Republic comes from? It's not just a clothing brand. This is the term from the early 1900s that was given to the brutal and corrupt puppet regimes the U.S. installed in Central America, so that companies like United Fruit, now Chiquita Bananas, stop eating Chiquita Bananas, could super exploit and reap massive profits from people's blood, sweat, and tears. Between 1903 and 1925, in the period known as the Banana Wars, the U.S. invaded Honduras 7 times. Oh, but that was such a long time ago. The U.S. and Latin America have become compadres, right? Good. Okay. Fast forward from World War II to the present. In 1954, after a popular nationalist leader in Guatemala tried to redistribute some of the United Fruit Company's unused land, the CIA had him overthrown and replaced by a U.S. trained colonel who went on to torture and kill thousands. In 1961, the U.S. tried to overthrow the new government in Cuba in the Bay of Pigs invasion. In 1965, the U.S. invaded the Dominican Republic to crush a rebellion and install a new U.S. president, a new pro-U.S. president. The U.S. orchestrated a fascist coup in Chile in 1973 and backed counter-revolutionary and fascist regimes in Bolivia and Nicaragua. When people in Central America rose up in the 1980s against corrupt U.S.-backed tyrants, U.S. funded, trained, backed the reign of death squad terror in Honduras, Nicaragua, and El Salvador. In Guatemala, the U.S. backed Christian fascist butcher Rios Moran slaughtered over 75,000 indigenous Mayan people, burned 600 villages to the ground, and literally ripped the heart out of children in front of their parents, literally. The U.S. invaded Panama in 1989, dropping bombs on poor urban neighborhoods. And in case the Haitian people hadn't suffered enough under the boot of the U.S. for decades, the CIA helped to stage a bloody coup that removed a popular leader, Jean-Bertrand Aristide, from power in 1991. And then they invaded Haiti in 1994, then had Aristide moved again in 2004, literally kidnapping him and putting him on a plane out of the country. In 2009, Obama and Hillary Clinton orchestrated a fascist coup in Honduras to replace a mildly reformist elected president. And this is just a partial list. And this was done under Republicans and Democrats. And all of it was done in the name of democracy. And you wonder why Haiti is poor. When I started off with the French, the French are some dirty. They some dirty people. They are not your friends. This is from Levert the Basement. He said, for the French, it was cheaper to kill an enslaved African and wait on a new shipment to arrive than improve their living conditions. And over the course of 100 years, from the 1680s to 1780s, over 1 million Africans were killed. They killed over 1 million people in the course of 100 years. Now remember, slavery started in Haiti in 1492. And at that time, Columbus and them killed over 8 million indigenous people. The death rate in Saint Dominique was ridiculous. In just 100, slavery killed 1 million people, just 100 years. And thousands more were killed by suicide because they knew death was better than enslavement. And women, newly arrived African women, committed suicide at a higher rate than anybody else. Not only were they forced to work in the fields, but they were also subjected to rape. Their bodies were no longer their own. They were reduced to little more than a substitute for some white man's hand. You know what I mean? And those who were impregnated often didn't make it to full term. They either died during pregnancy, during birth, or they didn't deliver live births. My God, this is what the French people did to African people. This just didn't happen in Haiti, but in every French colony around the world. That is their legacy, the legacy of the French. Their pastries and desserts that people love so much are a result of the enslavement of African people. And that's why I say when, we've seen, what was it, the Bastille burned down, and French had some disasters, and this, that, and the other. And people were putting the French flag on their Facebook page. Black people. And that's what I told them. Don't be too quick to salute the colonizer's flag, because it's soaked with the blood of our people. Wake up. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. This is Patrice Gibbs, your third eye optometrist here on the Open Eye. So, quote, history will one day have its say, but it will not be the history that Brussels, Paris, Washington, or the United Nations will teach, but that which they teach in the countries emancipated from the colonialism and its puppets, a history of glory and dignity. It's a quote from my namesake, Patrice Lumumba. A few years ago, I met a gentleman who claimed he was a retired Air Force intelligence officer who was stationed in the Congo in the late 1950s. He said he had the privilege to see Patrice Lumumba speak live in person. I was intrigued. He said Patrice Lumumba was the most charismatic speaker he has ever seen, much more so than even Martin Luther King Jr. or Malcolm X. He said seeing Lumumba was almost a religious experience. He said he knew that day this man would not live long. Patrice Lumumba was considered by Western powers to be the most dangerous man on the African continent, whose message could not be allowed to reach the masses. I asked him, who killed Patrice Lumumba? He responded, who do you think? Don't forget the legacy of the NATO countries in the Democratic Republic of Congo, when Lumumba's determination to achieve genuine independence, to have full control of the Congo's resources, to utilize them to improve the living conditions of his people, was received as a threat to Western interests. Yeah? Mm-hmm. From 1961 until now, the imperialist powers hide behind puppet regimes to distribute the essential resources in the Congo to satisfy imperial interests. Did you know that the Congo produces up to 70% of the world's cobalt? That's an essential mineral for lithium batteries and products for Western companies like Apple, Tesla, and Microsoft. And that 35,000 plus of minors are children as young as 6 years old. 6 years old. And the Congo is one of the poorest countries in the world, but its mineral wealth is estimated to be worth $24 trillion. Resources which companies and multinational countries ruthlessly exploit at the expense of human lives. If Patrice Lumumba was able to govern the Congo, we would be looking at a different nation right now, in a different continent. With the outbreak of the Cold War, it was inevitable that the U.S. and its Western allies not allow Africans have effective control over strategic raw materials, lest these fall in the hands of their enemies in the Soviet camp. Yeah. It is in this regard that Patrice Lumumba's determination to achieve genuine independence and have full control over Congo's resources in order to utilize them to improve the living conditions of his people. The charismatic Lumumba championed national unity, economic independence, and Pan-African solidarity. Patrice Lumumba was perceived as a threat to Western interests. Both the United States and Belgium actively sought to have Patrice Lumumba assassinated. According to declassified National Security Council transcripts, President Eisenhower ordered CIA Chief Allen Dulles to have Lumumba eliminated. The United States and Belgium funneled cash and to aid to Lumumba's Congolese political rivals, specifically Joseph Mobutu and his forces. Patrice Lumumba was seized, beaten, and tortured, and then turned over to the Belgians who killed him by firing squad. The heinous crime was a culmination of two interrelated assassination plots by American and Belgian governments, which used Congolese accomplices and a Belgian execution squad to carry out the deed. The assassination's historical importance lies in a multitude of factors, the most pertinent being the global context in which it took place, its impact on Congolese politics since then, and Lumumba's overall legacy as a nationalist leader. Patrice Lumumba, the first legally elected Prime Minister of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, was assassinated January 17, 1961. 2 months later, specifically March 29, 1961, Black nationalist, Pan-Africanist, third-generation Garveyite, Mrs. Jane Gibbs gave birth to her only son. I was named Patrice Frederick Gibbs. My name is a testament to the conscious environment in which I was raised. WHGE 95.3 FM, Open Eye. Did I say, good morning, my children of the sun? Yes, I did. Yeah, I did. Monday is January the 20th. Yeah. two things go on January 20th. The Tangerine Terrorist will be inaugurated as the 47th president. I heard a lot of people talking about Michelle Obama is not going to attend the inauguration. And they think that's just awful. How dare her? Yeah. I saw one of the congresswomen in the Congressional Black Caucus saying that it ain't going either. And of course, the right wing is upset about that. How dare her? Well, you know, they forgot that in January, when Biden was inaugurated, was it 2021, whenever it was, when Biden was inaugurated, and Trump didn't go. And of course, what happened before that inauguration was, one, Trump refused to give up power. He incited an insurrection. No goddamn wonder he didn't go to the inauguration. Yeah. January 15th was Dr. King's actual birthday. But of course, it's celebrated on the third Monday, usually around January 20th. And this Monday will be the celebration of Dr. King's birthday. That's almost like inaugurating the orange disaster on the celebration day of Dr. King's birthday. It's like blasphemy. We forget how people felt about Dr. King, because it's detrimental to our current efforts to forget that when Dr. King died, Dr. King was an enemy of the state, not a national hero. And if you think you would have sided with black people in the civil rights movement, but don't support today's protesters, stop quoting Dr. King, because you're full of it. Yeah. 57 years ago, 57 years after his death, At the time of Dr. King's death, the vast majority of black churches consider him a troublemaker, and he was not welcome in many black churches. Now they pay mealy-mouthed, pious irrelevancies to his legacy a couple of times a year, but do not speak truth to power as Dr. King did. Most well-known black ministers are more concerned with prosperity preaching instead of liberation theology, which is not profitable. Dr. King remains a prophet without honor in the very institution that nurtured him, the black church. A lot of y'all, you don't even know who Dr. King was. I'll tell you a couple of things about him. Did you know Dr. King entered Morehouse College in 1944 at the age of 15? Did you know he and his sister graduated the same day in 1948? He graduated from Morehouse in 1948, catching up with his big sister. Was he smart or what? Yeah. Yep. Like I said, a lot of y'all, you didn't know Dr. King. I'm talking about my people. Because once again, it's that time of year that we like to pretend Dr. King never said things like this. Capitalism does not permit an even flow of economic resources. With this system, a small privileged few are rich beyond conscious. And almost all Others are doomed to be poor at some level. That's the way the system works. And since we know that the system will not change the rules, we are going to have to change the system. So Dr. King said, yeah, have to change the system. And I know a lot of y'all ain't with that. Yes, sir. Hold on. I'm still with you here. Get something a little set up right here, okay? Moving right along. Like I said, a lot of y'all, you didn't know Dr. King. You like to think you did, but you didn't. Yeah, that's all right. Hey. A lot of you thought Dr. King was just an integrationalist. He just wanted to integrate us. No, it was not about integration. It was about access. And you didn't listen to him. This is one of the things you didn't listen to. Dr. King said, I favor integration on buses and in all areas of public accommodation and travel. I am for equality. However, I think integration in our public schools is different. He upset a lot of people when he said that. He went on to say, in that setting, you're dealing with one of the most important assets of an individual, the mind. White people view black people as inferior. A large percentage of them have a very low opinion of our race. People with such a low view of the black race cannot be given free rein and put in charge of the intellectual care and development of our boys and girls. Yeah. Upset a lot of people with that. And those that claim the mantle of black power like to pretend Martin woke up in the last couple of years of his life. Not so. Martin was woke as and radical from the gate. As a matter of fact, Martin scared the hell out of the civil rights leaders of his time and his contemporary allies. When they could no longer rein him in, they turned on him. Adam Clayton Powell knew. You know what Adam Clayton Powell said? Adam Clayton Powell said Martin does not belong to the decadent, aristocratic colonialists of the civil rights movement. Yeah. Y'all didn't know him. Didn't know him. And Martin said, you know, when they came at him about the Black Power movement, about the riots and what have you, you got to condemn the riots, Martin. Martin said, but it is not enough for me to stand before you tonight and condemn riots. It would be morally irresponsible for me to do that without, at the same time, condemning the contingent, intolerable conditions that exist in our society. These conditions are the things that cause individuals to feel that they have no other alternative than to engage in violent rebellions to get attention. And I must say tonight that a riot is the language of the unheard. They weren't ready for that. They didn't know him. Still don't. Because they wanted to use some watered down, marginalized propaganda about Dr. King. Oh, Dr. King was for equality of the races, or yeah. And Dr. King fought for the rights of all peoples. He was for the rights of Chinese and Mexicans and Native Americans and the LGBTQ and everybody. got it mixed. Dr. King was a race man. Dr. King was for the empowerment of black people. And that's a fact. Believe what you want. And I tell you, you didn't know it. You didn't know it. Martin does not belong to the decadent aristocratic colonialists of the civil rights movement. He didn't then and he wouldn't now. That's why he was feared. They were so afraid of him they had to kill him. And you black power people running around talking about Martin was soft, you go to hell. You don't know what you're talking about. By 1967, the Black Power movement had come to the fore. White America had its fill of civil progress. Many whites that supported Dr. King thought the work was done. And support was already eroding. Then Dr. King took a stance against the Vietnam War. And it wasn't just about the war. Oh, Martin Luther King was vehemently criticized by blacks and whites alike. The death threats escalated. At the beginning of 1968, Dr. King was considered the most divisive figure in America. No one seemed to want to accept or even notice the language that Dr. King was using. Okay? Some say he was dismissive of the Black Power movement. And Dr. King acknowledged the Black Power movement. Not only did he acknowledge it, he embraced it, understood it, defined it, and explained it. Dr. King said, Black power in its broad positive meaning is a call to black people to amass the political and economic strength to achieve their legitimate goals. No one can deny that the Negro is in dire need of this kind of legitimate power. Black power is also a call for the pooling of black financial resources to achieve economic security. Through the pooling of such resources and the development of habits of thrift, techniques of wise investment, the Negro will be doing his share to grapple with his problem of economic deprivation. If Black power means the development of this kind of strength within the Negro community, then it is a quest for basic, necessary, legitimate power. So Dr. King said. In early 1968, Dr. King was the undisputed leader of the civil rights movement. He reached out to the Black Power movement and was well received. Okay, this is where you confuse black militants that didn't know him or the respect that the Black Power movement of that time had for him. Those close to Dr. King and the public at large might have turned a blind eye. The government, specifically the FBI and J. Edgar Hoover, were watching very closely, too closely. Because Hoover despised Dr. King with all the hatred of a frothing at the mouth, rabid, racist redneck. Hoover's hatred was savagely psychotic. After the 1963 March on Washington, Hoover declared Dr. King the most dangerous man in America. After learning Dr. King was to be the recipient of the 1964 Nobel Peace Prize, FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover's obsessive hate went over the edge. Hoover put the full power of the Bureau behind eliminating Dr. King. The plot involved office break-ins, use of informers, mail opening, wiretapping, bugging Dr. King's office, home, hotel rooms. Agents sent letters threatening to expose Dr. King's dalliances and implying that he should commit suicide. After Dr. King's philosophical and tactical transition, Hoover's nefarious intentions took on an urgency. March 4th, 1968, the FBI issued a COINTELPRO memo that included the need to prevent the rise of a messiah who could unify and electrify the militant black nationalist movement. Malcolm X might have been such a messiah, but he's a martyr of the movement today. Martin Luther King, Stokely Carmichael, and Nation of Islam leader Elijah Muhammad all aspired to this position. Elijah Muhammad is less of a threat because of his age. King could be a real contender for this, should he abandon his supposed obedience to white liberal doctrines, specifically nonviolence, and embrace black nationalism, which he already had. 1 month later, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated.
One day, they couched it in language. They made everything black, ugly, and evil. Look in your dictionaries. Somebody told a lie one day. They couched it in language. They made everything black, ugly, and evil. Look in your dictionary and see the synonyms of the word black. There's always something degrading and low and sinister. Look at the word white. It's always something pure. But I want to get the language right tonight. I want to get the language so right that everybody here will cry out, yes, I'm black, I'm proud of it, I'm black and beautiful.
WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. Yeah, I know I'm going over it. That's all right. Yeah. You know, it's something that the rest of the world is looking at America like, what's wrong with y'all? I saw this TikTok video. It's a mayonnaise mafia lady had been on the, because you know TikTok is due to be banned, so they're finding alternatives, and one is called Red One or something like that. It's another Chinese social media site, and she couldn't believe how the Chinese people were living, because homelessness in China is like less than 2% of 1/10 of the population. 1 billion people. In China, 4 billion, whatever the population is, more than America. Of course, it's about 20% of Americans. And that's what she was complaining about, how she works 60 hours. She works 60 hours just to make ends meet. Most Americans are a paycheck away from homelessness and poverty. In Sweden, they said, we tax our billionaires 55.5%. Over in the Netherlands, they're like, yeah, we tax ours at 49.5%. Germany said, yeah, we do too, 47%. And people in the United States was like, you tax your billionaires? Yeah, dumbass. America will not be destroyed by undocumented immigrants, Muslims, abortion, the LGBTQ community, black people. America to be destroyed by the unbridled greed, never-ending deception, unprecedented corruption, lack of integrity, and non-existent morality. Under Orange Disaster and his enablers in the Republican Party. You know that almost half of U.S. families cannot afford basics like rent and food? Oh, the economy might be chugging along, but many Americans are still struggling to afford a basic middle-class life. Yeah. More than half. See, the greatest theft in history was not executed. I think this is from Dr. Norton, historian. The greatest theft in history was not executed with weapons or with masks on. Okay? All right? It was not to remove the grand piece of art from the museum or a massive diamond from the basement of some secret castle. It was perpetrated in shiny towers by greedy capitalists who were systematically gutting the future for children of America. In 3 generations, 3 generations, since the time of Ronald Reagan made roasting hell and made the devil sodomizing with a pitchfork, these modern day aristocrats transformed America from a shining beacon of prosperity into their own personal hunting grounds where dreams go to die. And they're harvested for profit. This is not mere failure or just plain and simple greed. It is calculated predation. Let's strip away the BS real fast, okay? Productivity has gone up 60% since 1979, while wages have risen 15%. Where all that money go? It went straight into the 1% offshore tax havens and their bonuses that would make Marie Antoinette blush. Oh, they're not just taking their share anymore. They're taking everything that's not bolted down. And then they're selling the boats. On top of that, we need to call it what it is, a methodical ranshacking of the American working class. These modern day feudal lords haven't just rigged the game. They have bought the casino, bribed the dealers, stacked the deck, and reprogrammed the slots, all to work only in their favor. The time for polite disagreement is over. The next chapter will be written in labor strikes, mass protests, and systemic upheaval. They've created a generation with nothing to lose. And soon they will understand what that means. All right. Let me move on here. Coming around to the close here. I'll say this for next time, all right? All right. Some of you may have heard me say this before. Okay? Listen, this is revolution reality. You've thrown off the shackles. You have debunked the myth. You've opened your eye. You are woke. Now what? Many of people are not ready for the responsibility of revolution and nationhood. There will be casualties. Some of us are not going to make it. You know what? I'm okay with that, because some of us don't need to. It's not easy to put you in shackles. It was not easy. What makes you think it's going to be easy to remove them? Every night I petition the ancestors for guidance, and every morning the ancestors charge me to sound the alarm. I know we had the plan because the ancestors gave it to me and I wrote it down. We had the personnel, the funds, the plan. Now all we need is the goddamn nerve. Never forget what Marcus Garvey taught us. that intelligence rules the world and ignorance carries the burden. Therefore, you remove yourself as far as possible from ignorance and seek as far as possible to be intelligent. Read a book. It's not illegal yet. Probably gonna lose some friends. I really don't give a damn, as I'm much more interested in power than I am in popularity. Yes, I mean black power. The power we need not only to survive, but to thrive. The power we need to battle the genocidal goals of white supremacy. I don't give a damn about forming some phony-ass one-sided alliance with people who only want to cry brotherhood when it's convenient for them. If alliances with others are not instrumental in the advancement and liberty of black people, miss me with that. Black first. WHGE 95.3 FM. I'm Patrice Gibbs, the Open Eye. WHGE 95.3 FM, the education advocacy station. Yes, indeed. All right. Thank you for joining us on Open Eye, joining me on Open Eye. Hope you learned something. I know I did before I got here. And as we always tell you, destiny determines who enters your life, but you decide who stays. Therefore, value those who value you, and don't treat those as a priority who treat you as an option. This has been Open Eye. I'm Patrice Gibbs. Thanks for joining us. All right. Thanks for joining us on the Open Eye. Thank you for that, Brother Mishbah. Yes, indeed. And as I always tell you, global African supremacy. Because the world was a much better place when the African ruled. I'm Patrice Gibbs.